Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Transfer Portal CFB podcast presented by No Context College Football. It is week 13. It is rivalry weekend. Man, this is the end of the regular season, y'all. I cannot believe we're here. It's finally the last time we get to see some of these rivalries for a while. This is a lot of fun this time of year. So, thank you, everybody, for joining us. We are joined by Adeen Rao, our guest picker for this week. Adeen, tell me how you're doing, man.
Yeah, I'm doing fantastic. Enjoying my Thanksgiving break away from college, I gotta say. Hoping to enjoy some good football this week because I would normally not be able to with how many classes I have. So,
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us, man. Really appreciate you taking the time out to join us. Adam is with us as well. Adam, how we feeling?
A little nervous about this weekend. I'm not gonna lie, a little nervous, but feeling good. Hopefully everything works out and well for me, not for you, Dylan. Respectfully, but we'll get
All
to
right. I appreciate that.
that
I appreciate the transparency. We're all on the same page here. Even though our teams have nothing to do with each other, I definitely get the hostility there. But so to start with, the Dean, obviously you cover Missouri sports, and Missouri's obviously had a phenomenal season. And I don't know how many people would have seen it coming. I think a lot of people in the Missouri circle knew how much talent was on this team. It was a matter of coaching and if they could put it together, in SEC play. So tell me about what it's been like witnessing this season, and do you think they have a shot at potentially a New Year's Six Bowl?
yeah, as far as watching this team, if you told me after week two, after we had barely skimmed by Middle Tennessee, the offense looked stagnant at best. We were really looking at more of the same. I would have slapped you in the face if you told me this team had an opportunity at a New Year's Six Bowl. But right now they have one hurdle. I mean, they have Arkansas, and Arkansas is going to look to play spoiler. As far as how has it's been watching this team this season, it's just been a whole lot of fun. Did I expect the hiring an offensive coordinator to work out so well for Elia Drinkwitz? Not at all. I thought it was just, hearsay. I thought it was just a bunch of guys saying, I'm telling you, that's the big deal. That's the reason why this is going well, not well, is because he has too much on his plate. Um, and it has really worked wonders. The wrinkles that have been added to the offense by Kirby Moore have been absolutely fantastic. But, look no further than guys like Darius Robinson on defense stepping up, turning in on the best defensive lineman in the SEC. I mean, Kirby Smart said it himself. That's one of the hardest guys to block in the country. And the secondary had a really rough start to the season. They've really turned it on as of late. And as far as if I think they have a New Year's Six Bowl shot, I think they have the realest shot. I mean, it's literally just a shoe in if they can win this game against Arkansas. The committee has proved that with ranking them ahead of Louisville, even with 2 losses. And it's really just been fun for the most part. It's fun football to watch, and it's something that people in Columbia have been dying for, and it's just great to see.
You have a preference for which bowl game you'd like to see Missouri in, which opponent? Because I know of this time of year, a lot of the predictions are running around for bowl games. Do you have a preference on which one you like to see them in?
So I'm from Houston, Texas, so I would love to see them play the Longhorns. That would be really cool if the Longhorns don't make the
hey,
playoff,
hey,
which I
hey,
think is
hey, hey, hey. We busy. We love that, but we gonna be busy.
So I'm saying if the bad things happen, would not mind the Texas Cotton Bowl. That being said, as far as location, as a reporter, obviously I want to have the location that's most accessible to me, and I live in Colorado, which I believe that'd be the Fiesta Bowl. And I have family down there in Arizona that I could stay with, go watch the game, cover the game, maybe get credentialed. That'd be a really amazing experience. Um, I think that our fan base would travel really well to any game. They're a very dedicated fan base, especially when this team is winning. And this team has won, and they've sold out the last 5 games at Faroe. So, and they're even trying to Tiger Stripe Arkansas. I don't know how many
Oh
Razorback
wow.
fans are watching, but there's a plan to try and Tiger Stripe a section of our Razorback Stadium. So, I really would love to see them maybe go to the Fiesta or the Cotton Bowl. That'd be really cool.
I think it'd be great to see Missouri on that kind of stage because they have a lot of talent, and it feels like if you really follow college football, you really follow the SEC. You know that. I feel like nationwide, I feel like people are still kind of sleeping on the talent that like you said, is on the defense. And Luther Burden, I feel like, isn't talked about among the best receivers in the country as he absolutely should be. Cody Schrader is an All-American in my eyes. I think he should be, on every award list possible. I want to see him on a huge stage like that. So that would be a lot of fun. But you were talking about if Texas doesn't make the college football playoff. So I guess that's a good transition into our final college football playoff predictions. As we said, entering week 13. Adeen, let me start with you. At this point right now, who do you think are the four teams that have the best case of getting into the college football playoff, or will have the best case when it's all said and done?
Are we saying, yeah, when it's all said and done? So we're not saying if the season ended today. If it's when it's all said and done, I think that as far as what we can see in the final, I think that Georgia has that reputation to be a shoo-in, even if they lose to Alabama as an undefeated SEC champ, as an undefeated team heading in the SEC championship. I think they've shown enough. I think they've dominated their teams lately. Had some really good wins down the stretch. So I think they're a shoo-in in my book. Just given how the committee has, I'd say respected the SEC. You got teams like Tennessee at 21, which, by the way, I cannot believe that. As someone who's watched the team in person, no chance. And I think it'll be Georgia. I think it'll be Oregon. I think Oregon has the edge in a game against Washington again. And I think it would be Michigan is going to take down Ohio State again. I think Ryan Day just can't solve that team right now. And I don't like McCord going into that matchup. And then as far as the fourth spot, I love how I said I would like to see Texas in the Cotton Bowl. I think Texas is going to take care of business here in the last couple of weeks with Ewers healthy and that team as a whole just finding ways to win games. I think they're going to beat they're going to face whoever they face in the Big 12 championship game. I think they're going to beat an Oklahoma team again. I think if that's how it comes down to, and that would be really nice to see for Texas fans, obviously. And that's what I think will be the four. So
in that order, in that seating order?
No, I think it'll be Georgia. I think they'll run the table. I think they make it even if they lose in the SEC championship game, but I don't see them losing to Alabama. I think they'll be number one. I think we'll see Michigan as an undefeated Big Ten champion at number two. And then I think we'll see Texas at number three, and then you'll see Oregon at number four. I think Texas could leapfrog Oregon, even though they would beat a Washington team.
Interesting. Adam, how do you feel about this?
I if Oregon was a Pac-12, I don't think Texas leapfrogs them. I will. If Georgia loses, I don't think they get in.
Really?
Yeah, I mean,
you think they get smacked? Maybe I could see it.
I don't think they leave out the SEC. Just in the way this year is going, I don't think they get in if they lose to Alabama, unless Florida State loses, Texas loses. I think Oregon might have to lose and lose this week, and then go and beat Washington. Then that maybe take out the whole Pac-12. But
as per usual, always happens.
And honestly, I don't think Georgia deserves to get in if they lose. If I'm being honest, but
give me what you expect to happen. Your order of four
is I think Georgia's gonna win because I don't think Alabama's as good as people say they are. I think Michigan loses to Ohio State. Give me Ohio State. All right.
Getting spicy.
Is that spicy? I didn't know that's spicy.
No, but it's different for us, I guess.
I think either way you go, it's not spicy at all.
No, it's just different than his. So I guess that's what makes it spicy.
And then I got Oregon over Washington. Although I think Washington get a little disrespected with the Oregon being the favorites, even though Washington beat them. And I think Texas wins. I think Florida State loses. So I'm going with Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, in that order.
So before I give mine, I do want to. You guys talked about Florida State because they're a huge question mark now with Jordan Travis being out for the year. I think it was pretty there was a lot of confidence in saying they could beat a Florida team on the road, a lowly Florida team, and then the Louisville matchup I think would have been a tough one, even if Jordan Travis was healthy, because that Louisville team looks really good. I think that would be a good match for Florida State, probably their best match of the year. However, Jordan Travis is gone, so do we feel like Florida State still has a shot at the college football playoff even without Jordan Travis?
If they went out, I think they deserve to get in.
100% agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Can
only
they
way
win out?
can they? They're gonna have to figure out how to run the ball a lot better. I mean, they've been a real pass heavy team this whole year, understandably, with those weapons. I think Louisville couldn't stop the run. They couldn't stop Miami's running attack. And that's all Miami could do. Tyron Dyke was hurt. So if they can figure out how to get the running game going, I think they can get past Louisville. Florida also has a backup quarterback. We'll talk about that game later. But I think they can. And if they do, I think they deserve it. Despite, are they the fourth best team in the country without Jordan Travis? Of course not. But those kids, I mean, you got that zero in that loss column. Come on.
To add on to that, I mean, the committee has said, and you never know with what the committee says on ESPN, especially because they kind of get led into the questions that they're asked. But they say that the ranking, even today, the ranking has nothing to do with injuries. It has to do with resume, which I actually agree with. I think Washington should have leapfrogged them anyways because they have a better resume. They got a really good win against Oregon State. I think that obviously they're gonna have Tate Rodemaker at quarterback. In the little amount of game time he's looked pretty decent. A thrower of the football. Is Florida State a team that can rely on their run game with a guy like Trey Benson in the backfield? Absolutely. I think he's a really good player. Do I think they deserve to get in if they win based on how the committee votes? I agree 100% that they should get in. Would they be one of the top 4 teams in the country? Absolutely not. But that's not usually that's what they say they want. But I think you'd be hard pressed to leave out a 14-0 team that has won a conference championship from the top 4. That would be ridiculous.
I will say though, I think they have to look good in the wins. Like that Florida game, the Florida game can get ugly. I think it will get ugly. If that's a 14-10 game and they have like a pick six or a block punt or something like that, and the offense just doesn't move, then they go to Louisville and they don't look good at all either. And let's say the Pac-12, the Big Ten, they're gonna get somebody, right? If Texas loses and Alabama beats Georgia, I could see them putting Georgia in over that. I think that's the only scenario. I think they get in over Texas no matter what. I think they get in over Alabama, unless Alabama wins, they're going to get in. But that's the only scenario is if Alabama beats Georgia and they don't look good. I think Georgia gets in over them, which I don't necessarily agree with, but I can see it happening.
I wouldn't agree with it either. I don't think Georgia should get in over. I mean, like I think Georgia's a great team. Having seen them play, they're really turning it on lately. I mean, they've beat some really good teams and made it look not even close. The last couple of weeks. Well, I don't know. Tennessee maybe not a really good team, but Ole Miss was a pretty Ole Miss was a pretty outstanding performance. That was really an eye-opening one from them. They consistently show that they have top tier talent. That being said, the committee will obviously look at matchups and what matchups will people most want to see, whether they'll say it or not. They will look at that. And do people want to see a backup quarterback, like a Florida State led team? And especially a lot of people have questioned their resume to this point anyways, because they haven't really had any marquee wins since that opening week win over LSU, which they dominated, but they obviously had a different guy under center in that game. Do they still have a shot though? That's the question. 100,000%. I think they can beat Louisville without Jordan Travis. I think they're a lot more of a team than Jordan Travis. I don't think they're one of those teams that's just quarterback centric. They have so many weapons on the wide out spot that a backup quarterback can utilize. They have a great weapon at running back. They have a fantastic edge rusher in Jared Verse to look at. And they have tons of great players that can really, really, dominate the play. But do I think they're in a playoff? Do I think they would get blown out though if they made the playoff in that scenario? Absolutely. I don't think there's a chance against the number 1 team in that scenario. No way.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that about their roster. I mean, that we're still talking about a really stacked roster. And I know they've had some, games where they've looked a little shaky. I think they had a 2-point win against Boston College. They struggled a little bit, down the stretch, kind of in the middle of the season. It seemed like they were always kind of on upset watch. They were down 13-0 for a minute for North Alabama. I know they ended up winning, but like people were like, this team's a fraud. But yeah, I mean, the running game to me hasn't been relied on as much as I think it should have been. Trey Benson to me is still, a top tier running back, or maybe close to it. The receiving core is outstanding. They have a couple really talented tight ends. The offensive line's been outstanding. I think, like you said, I think without Jordan Travis, I think they match up really well with Louisville. I honestly might still lean Florida State to beat Louisville on that stage as well. To me, I think it's going to be kind of a test on Saturday to see what Jordan Travis does, or sorry, Tate Rodemaker does against Florida. I want to see, how he kind of handles being a starter and having that stage and handling the offense and the noise and all that sort of stuff. I want to see how he handles it because, like you said, in the little bit that we've seen, he's looked pretty impressive, talented kid. I just want to see how he handles everything as the guy before I really start comfortably picking them to beat Louisville, who I still think is a very good team. But um, for my final college football playoff predictions, I think Georgia's the number one seed. I think they beat Alabama. I think it's going to be a pretty good test because I disagree with Adam. I think Alabama is kind of slept on because there was that patch where, yeah, they lost to Texas. They looked like garbage against South Florida. But that was just the most un-Alabama game in probably since losing to UL Monroe. But since then, I think they've looked fantastic. Honestly, I think their defense is coming into form. The offense has figured it out. They're not on upset watch every week, so I think Alabama can definitely give Georgia a test. I still think Georgia's the better team. I'm going to roll with Michigan to beat Ohio State for the third year in a row. I think this one's going to be close compared to the last two, where it was close for like three quarters, then Michigan pulls away. I think Michigan will or Ohio State rather, will play it a little bit closer, and make it seem a little less like a blowout the last couple 2 years. I'm going to go Oregon at the third seed. I think Oregon State is going to give them a test just because they know how much is on the line for their rivals. If they can kick them out, I think Oregon is going to get the best from Oregon State this weekend. And then the Washington game, I definitely think Oregon has a really good shot of beating Washington just because the last few weeks, Washington to me hasn't looked like one of the top five teams when you just look at the eye test, but their resume is up there. I think they're like a top three, top four resume in the country. So that'll be a lot of fun to see. And then the fourth one, I think I am going to roll with Florida State still. And as much as I probably don't want to see it with them against Georgia in the playoff, I think that's what's going to end up happening. Because I do think that they can beat Florida and they can beat Louisville in the championship game. I think that Louisville one, a lot of people are going to have eyes on, if Florida State can beat them comfortably, because I almost feel like maybe a one loss. I've seen some people ask about like if Washington loses to Oregon in like a close game, could maybe a one loss Oregon still get in over like an undefeated Florida State if Florida State like kind of looks sloppy the next couple of weeks. I don't think that's going to happen. I agree with you. I don't see it being possible that an undefeated team is out of the playoff unless there's five or more of them. I think that would be the only way that an undefeated team is excluded from the playoff. But do you guys remember your first college football playoff predictions? Like, do you guys way back in August or July or previous? I want to see what you guys remember and what it looks like now. Adeen, I have a feeling yours is bad. I think we've talked about it a little bit before the podcast, but expose it. We gotta hear this.
So, I didn't really, I had Clemson, being really good this year with Cade Klubnik. I thought they were going to run the table. I thought they were going to return to the championship moniker. I thought they were going to return to being a championship level program. I thought the last couple of years have been, tough years for Dabo and them, but I'm thinking like championship pedigree, championship recruiting. But I think that what we've seen so far is, and I had them in at like number 3 or number 2. As far as I can remember, I think what you can look at though is, and I'll be man enough to admit that, I think what you can look at is that Dabo's failure to adapt to the transfer portal has really set his program back quite a lot from a championship program. You can literally link their fall as a program to the rise of the transfer portal. And then I believe I had Georgia number 1. That was a shoe-in for me from the beginning of the season. They're just such a good program. And then I think I had Texas is back because a good friend of mine who's been on these podcasts a few times, Shehan Jayaraja,
Hmm.
was telling me in messages like, Adeen, I'm telling you, Texas is back. Texas is here. So I was like, I'm gonna believe you, man. I'm gonna believe you. And then I believe I had Ohio State at 2. I thought Kyle McCord and would be a lot better this year. I know Marvin Harrison has been great. Kyle McCord, not exactly the guy, he's not exactly been the plug and play stat monster that Ohio State usually has. So I think I had Georgia, Ohio State, Clemson, and Texas as my top 4, if I remember correctly.
3 of those look pretty good.
They could be pretty good, but the Clemson one it's not as bad as that one time Desmond Howard put Texas A&M in Pitt, but
Texas A&M
Yeah.
in Miami was that his 3 or something
and
like
there was
that.
Baylor as well.
Baylor.
But
Oh, yeah.
but it's Clemson and there's a travesty in itself. So yeah.
Adam, how about you? What do you remember about who you had early in the season?
I had Georgia. I think that was kind of a gimme. I had Michigan because I wasn't sure about Ohio State and Kyle McCord and them. Then I had Oregon. No, I had Washington. I had Washington. I had Washington. And I'm pretty sure I had Oklahoma. I apologize. Mama, I'm sorry.
What a fraud.
This guy's a Texas fan. You got to be kidding me.
I thought that Oklahoma's the stability around the Oklahoma program. I thought coming in, Oklahoma and Texas were easily the 2 best. One of them would be 11-1, 12-1. I thought Oklahoma's stability around just the whole program itself. I lean towards them instead of Texas. Glad I was wrong. I'm gonna own that one, but Georgia, Michigan, Washington, Oklahoma.
Wow. Rock chalk. Shout out to Kansas for derailing that prediction. I'm pretty happy about that.
God, why'd you have to say that, man?
Oh, sorry.
Brutal.
Oops.
We're a big fan of the lowercase k where I come from. So
man, it's been so long since that was really a rivalry. I sometimes forget about it. Whenever I'm talking about Kansas in front of Missouri fans, it's kind of faded for me now. So, but it's definitely not for those 2 fan bases. That's pretty clear. Oh man, I had Michigan number 1 actually. I thought Michigan was going to be the number 1 team. I thought they were going to blow past pretty much everybody. I thought they were the most entering the season. I thought they were the most complete team in college football. I thought they had the least question marks. Turns out at this point they have a lot of question marks, whether that be on or off the field. We've talked about that at length previously. We won't get into that this week, but I thought they were the best team in the country coming in. Now you can talk about like schedules and stuff. Georgia to me had the easiest schedule going into the season, so I had them number 2. I thought they'd be undefeated, SEC champion. I still think that. Number 3, I had Florida State. I thought they'd be undefeated ACC champion. That still looks pretty good. Not as good as it would have looked, this time last week, but I still think it's doable. And then number 4, I had Washington. I almost never pick a Pac-12 team to go into the playoff because it's just a curse. Pac-12 teams just don't go into the playoff. The last 6, 7 years it's been since UW was there, 6, 7, probably in there somewhere. It just doesn't happen. There's always like 1 or 2 contenders, and they just fall short. Usually this time of year. So I never do it, but there was something about how complete this Washington team looked, how much they impressed me last year, how much Michael Penix Jr. has grown. I like what they did in the transfer portal. They were getting healthier. They had 2 of the probably 6 top receivers in the country, in my opinion. I think they're a complete team. I still think they have a really good shot, but at this point in the season, I prefer Oregon to Washington. Isn't that weird how we both had our rivals and then now we prefer the team we actually root for?
I will say I remembered I did not have Washington. I had USC.
Oh, gross.
Bro.
I had USC.
Oh,
100. I 100% had USC.
Now
that's an L.
I mean, that at the time, that's not crazy. I thought USC was probably like a number 2 team in the Pac-12 behind UW. I mean, that's kind of. It felt like before the season they were either number 1 or number 2 in most people's eyes, and lo and behold, they fell apart. Somebody had to.
I thought with the way the Pac-12 was touted as such a good conference this year, I thought that was going to hurt USC preseason
Hmm.
because they weren't this good last year and they kind of ran through the Pac-12 for the most part. And I just thought their schedule wasn't as favorable. I looked at it, there were so many good teams on there. I did not expect them to go 7-5. I'll tell you that for free. That being said, with the Michigan #1 prediction, big shout out to Connor Stallions' Venmo history. That's all I gotta say. That's all I'm gonna say.
Name dropping folks on the podcast. Alrighty. Shall we get into our game picks for week 13?
Let's get it.
All right. So with Dean, here's how we're going to do this. We're going to start with you for each game, and you just give us your, it's just straight up who you think is going to win. There's no over under, no spreads, nothing like that. Just straight up who you think is going to win. We have a 3-way tie for first place right now in our guest pickers at 8-2. So if you can get that elusive 9 wins, you might be our champion.
All right. All right. Well, for the first one, we got Ole Miss, Mississippi State.
Yes, sir.
So,
Egg Bowl.
Egg Bowl, this game's got a reputation for being quite the crazy one. Lots of good clips have arisen from this one. I'm not gonna name them, but we're gonna go with I'm gonna go with Ole Miss here. I think this one's pretty arbitrary. I think this one's pretty easy. If Mississippi State pulls this off, great, amazing. It'll be an amazing watch. But I do think Lane Kiffin and company will go in there and then show up a good performance. I think I'm gonna take Ole Miss, and I think it will be like a 14-point game. Ole Miss will win by 14 probably.
Yeah, I agree. I think Ole Miss, and I think they cover. One thing about Lane Kiffin, he makes sure he covers on spreads. I respect him for that. So I'm gonna go with Ole Miss as well.
Lane Kiffin is worth anything. He is a bettor's best friend. Shout out to Lane Kiffin. I almost want to pick Mississippi State just because this, like you said, this game is probably the most chaotic of all the rivalries in college football. It's the most unexpected. And I'm not even just talking about who wins the game. I'm talking about what happens in the game, who's throwing stuff, who's pissing on the field. Like it's always up to, the heavens to figure out what happens in the Egg Bowl. But I do feel pretty comfortable about Ole Miss winning this one. Mississippi State is having a really tough time. Obviously, firing Zach Arnett, I felt like a little bit too early. But I definitely think that program is having a tough time right now. Ole Miss, to me, I think that's a comfortable choice right now. This one's probably not going to be as comfortable. Iowa versus Nebraska. I don't know why I put this on here. I think it's just because Iowa is a Big Ten West champion by default, and Nebraska is 1 win away from bowl eligibility. So that's, I guess that's the charm of it.
I am going to. This is where, this is the moments when you look back, you're like, is this a difference between someone who goes 2-8 and who goes 8-2 or 9-1? I'm going to take Nebraska in this game for one reason, a couple reasons. And it's because I keep watching Iowa football. I keep watching them play some sloppy football, and I'm wondering when is it going to bite them? On the offensive side of the ball, they had a really close one with Illinois the last week. And Nebraska, for anyone who's watching Nebraska, Wisconsin, they had Chubba Purdy in at quarterback. And a lot of people were saying that Chubba was actually a better fit for this offense than anyone in their quarterback room was all season. But when Jeff Sims went down, he was already injured, so he couldn't be put in. And he's, they say that he's a really good fit for what Satterfield wants to run down there in Nebraska. And you never doubt a 5-6 team on the final week of the season. I'm telling you, they have so much to play for. Iowa literally has unequivocally, I think all they really have to play for is an opportunity. Well, they don't really have to play for much at all because they can get a New Year's Six bowl if they win next in the conference championship week. If they lose this game, pretty much nothing about their season changes other than how many wins they have. Now, I know the guy on Reddit College Football will be doing the Brian Ferentz point-o-meter, I'm sure, but seeing if he gets over 25. But I'm going to take Nebraska in this one. I'm going to take Nebraska in a close, defensive, gritty battle. I think Chubba Purdy, he's got a lot of confidence back there, and I think he's going to have a really good game.
Yeah, I agree. I'm over the Dean. I mean, Nebraska, they need this game. Matt Rule, it's not a good look to not make a bowl, especially in the Big Ten West. I mean, there's really no excuse for that. Let's be honest. They're at home. Is at Memorial Stadium, the many Memorial Stadiums in the country. There's like 20 of them. But,
Yeah.
give me Nebraska, bowl eligible. Could be the little turnaround for them. Who knows? And I just like you said, Iowa, they had nothing. I'm not gonna say they have nothing to play for. I mean, 10 wins is still a good year. You know, they're not gonna get the 10th win next week. Let's be honest. So, but I'm gonna go with
Regardless of who wins the game, regardless,
yeah.
Iowa's not winning that one. If it's close, I'll be surprised.
I swear, if they win that, I'm never gonna believe in college football again.
Do you want to say that louder so we can clip it and put it on social media?
No, do not quote me on that. If Iowa pulls off that win, that'll be college football ecstasy, man. That'll be the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
Oh man. No, I made a bet during one of the upset specials. I'm pretty sure it was about Iowa. I can't remember what exactly it was. It was something Iowa related, but I think I said if Iowa did something, they scored this many points, they beat this team. I don't remember, but it was I would jump into the nearest lake or something like that. Oh, I think it was if they beat Penn State. If they beat Penn State, I said they were gonna lose by like 30 plus, but if Iowa won, I would jump in a lake. And
They
thankfully
lost by
that didn't
30
happen.
plus. So
Yeah. I am also going to take Nebraska in this one. I'm going to go big red on this one. First bowl game since 2016, I believe, for Nebraska. Um, it's going to be a low scoring game. I hope people don't turn into this one if you're expecting offense, which you shouldn't. You're out of your mind if you're expecting offense in Iowa, Nebraska on a Friday afternoon. But I just don't think Iowa has enough. This is a stupidly bold take, okay? Iowa does not have enough offense to keep up with Nebraska, in my opinion, in my expert opinion. I don't think they have enough to keep up with Nebraska. I think Nebraska wins by 7 to 10 points.
Oh wow.
is that the final score?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was saying, so it'll be 10-3. Is that what you're saying?
7-10.
Probably. Yeah. Book it. 10-7. Nebraska wins. This is a big one. Friday, Group of Five action, American Athletic Conference action, UTSA against Tulane, both undefeated in conference play.
I love the Roadrunners. I'm a big fan of them. I love Jeff Traylor. Obviously, I heard he interviewed for the Texas A&M job, so could his foot be 1 foot out of the door really here in this offseason? He's going to be looking for a bigger job. Who knows? But do I like Tulane on this one? Now, the question is, right, will the fact that this week's college football playoff rankings that have Liberty at 25, which kind of, I think it's a big thing because it shows them that they're not exactly just like home free here. And as far as that, New Year's Six Bowl is concerned, they have someone knocking on the door right behind them. It's going to create some pressure, but I think the pressure will prevail at least this week. At least this week. Now, if it turns out an American Athletic Championship game, you can talk to me then. But I think Tulane's going to take this one. I think that they got a really good team over there, good offense. They're really, really well coached. So I'm going to take them by. And I'm taking a nail biter. I'm going to take them like by 3.
I'm going the opposite way. I'm going with UTSA. I'm not comfortable with it, but I feel like there's a lot of noise going around. I think this is how they answer. Like, we're here. Jeff Traylor is going to have them boys ready. I think he's locked in for UTSA, at least in the near future. I think they pull off the upset, and they play SMU, a little in Texas rivalry for the American Championship.
About that. Yeah, Houston had a really tough start to the season. Like even before the year, you could tell it might be a tough start because they had a loaded non-conference schedule. They had Houston on the road early on. They played Army, which turned out to be a tough test. They fell at home against Army, and then they played at Tennessee and started 1-3. They have not lost since. And to me, I think the biggest difference is that Frank Harris is healthy and he is running this offense right now. Yeah. He had a massive game against South Florida last week. South Florida's defense is porous, somehow better than last year, but still porous. Had like 500 something yards, I think 6 total touchdowns. And I think he's just getting started, really getting on fire. I think he's on fire right now. I would really like to see him get a win like this over a Tulane team on the road with huge, huge stakes. Obviously, I would assume UTSA is probably out of the New Year's Six opportunity, but I think some of the drive for them would be that they can play for yet another conference championship. They can play at a higher. I think the American is pretty safe to say it's higher than the Conference USA. Because Tulane obviously had a great year last year, having a great year this year. To be able to take down the top team in that conference in their first year in the conference, I think that'd be a huge statement in college football. So I'm picking UTSA as well. I started with Tulane, but Tulane the last couple of weeks have not really impressed me. I'm not super high on Tulane this year. I don't think they've really done anything that's impressed me. I think their win at Memphis was a solid one. Outside of that, I'm not really sold on Tulane just yet. If they beat UTSA, I'll change my mind, but I'm taking UTSA on this one. How about some Mountain West? Air Force, Boise State. Now, we were looking this up beforehand because there's a lot of weird scenarios in the Mountain West. But so UNLV plays San Jose State. If UNLV wins that game, the winner of Air Force, Boise State gets in. If UTSA, UNLV loses to San Jose State, I believe there's a three-way tie and things get weird, but we'll figure that out if we get there. Air Force, Boise State.
All right, so the thing is, the weird part about that is the Air Force Boise State game is first on that schedule. They're going to be on that Friday, and San Jose State UNLV will be on that Saturday. So they will have no idea going into that game if the winner of this game is in the Mountain West Championship. I think that plays a big factor because if it was with the reverse, this teams will be playing even harder. Now, I don't like how Air Force has been playing lately. I really like how Boise State's been playing lately, and I'm a big fan of Ashton Genty. Big fan of Taylor Green at the quarterback position. I think they're gonna. I know they're favored in this game by a sizable amount. I believe they're favored by 7. So I'm gonna actually take Boise State here, but I think the Air Force is gonna give them problems early, and I think that Boise State the talent will prevail over the course of the game. I think they are super talented on the offensive side of the football, and Air Force is just not gonna be able to contain it. So I'm gonna take Boise State by about 10 points. I think in this one.
Yeah, I agree. I think like kind of like you said, Air Force. I mean, they just I don't know. I don't know what happened for a while. They were the darlings of the group of 5, and then they lost 3 straight. And kind of like I said, Boise State's rolling. George Halani, he was destroyed Utah State last week. They didn't even really need Ashton Genty, but yeah, I think Boise State's going to take care of business. I don't see this one being close either. So I'm going with the Broncos.
Yeah, I think it's crazy because Boise State obviously has fired Andy Avalos at this point in the season. They've had a lot of injuries, a lot of weird personnel things, and they still have a decent shot of getting into the Mountain West championship game. It's a weird situation. It's how wide open the Mountain West is even this late into the season. But I agree with you guys. Air Force has been brutal, to be honest with you, the last few weeks. I believe they got shut out in the second half against UNLV after having a really strong first half. The 2 previous games, they turned the ball over, I think, like 6, 7, 8 times combined in those 2 games. They just offensively looked terrible. At times when they really needed it to step up. The game at Hawaii was one of the weirdest games in college football this year. Losing by 2 touchdowns at Hawaii was just crazy to me, but I like the momentum that Boise State has with an interim head coach at this point in the year, and that's a weird feeling. I don't usually have that in college football, but I think this team, Taylor Green is the guy again. I believe Maddox Madsen is out for the year, or he got benched. Ashton Genty's back in, Halani's healthy. I think Air Force, these teams are going in opposite directions, as weird as that might sound. I'm going to take Boise State as well, and I think they win comfortably at home. Pac-12, this is a big one. Oregon State versus Oregon in Eugene.
This is going to be a great game. I think for those of you that remember my playoff predictions just a little bit earlier, we'll probably be able to guess who I think will win this one. I think the fact that this game's in Autzen is a huge, huge aspect of this game. That's going to be a ruckus crowd. That's going to be huge. I think that if you had this game in Reser Stadium, I'd have a completely different look on it because of how good that Reser crowd is and how much they will affect the game. And I think that I'm going to take Oregon in this one. I think Bo Nix is I'm gonna say it. He's having fun, and he's having fun, and he's not exactly a dark horse candidate for the Heisman this year. So I'm gonna say that I think Oregon's gonna win this one. I think they might even make a statement. And it would be so Oregon though to make a statement in this game and just lose in to Washington the week after. But I think they make
Or
a
wouldn't
statement
it?
in this or win it, um, or lose this game and beat Washington next week and just make the Pac-12 just banish itself from the college football
That would
playoff.
be more Oregon.
That would be beautiful. Not beautiful for me. I want to see
I
the Pac-12
disagree.
in it. I want to see the Pac-12 in the playoff in any fashion this year. I just want to see it. But I'm going to take Oregon in this one, and I'm going to take them by 2 scores.
Yeah, I think Oregon they just start too fast for Oregon State. Unless for never know what to say from nowhere. If it starts fucking storming again, then maybe Oregon State might have a chance. But I think Oregon. I mean, they seem to be on a mission. I too picked them to make the college football playoff. So
I think
go with the
I think it's
Ducks.
funny that you were talking about Oregon just starts too fast. Do you guys remember what happened last year when Oregon played at Oregon State? They started too fast, apparently, and they lost. And so I don't. This Oregon State team is weird because I like the system of the offense more than I did last year, but it's starting to kind of putter a little bit. And I really think Oregon's playing as well as anybody in college football right now, from head to toe, offense, defense, not as much special teams, but um, I I think the biggest thing for me that was a question mark for Oregon was the run defense coming into this year. And Oregon State has one of the best rushing attacks in the Pac-12, and I feel a lot better about Oregon's ability to contain that up front, to be able to prevent them from getting into the second level, to prevent them from getting into the secondary, like what happened 19 straight times to end the game last year.
Didn't they
Um,
run the same play like 15 times Oregon State or something
Damn
like that?
near, yeah. Let's not rile myself up here, but I
Get fired
de-
up. Get
de-
fired up.
defensively, Oregon is loaded. They're hitting hard. They're tackling so much better. They're not missing assignments. They're playing as a team. They're forcing turnovers. I really think this Oregon team is as complete as any Oregon team I've ever seen. And I think Oregon is going to make a statement in this one as well and have all the momentum going into Las Vegas against UW December 1st. So give me Oregon in that one. Ohio State, Michigan, 2 versus 3 here. This is like, I mean, we already talked about Iowa. This is pretty easily, uh, a win and you're in the playoff.
Um, this game, I talked about it, and I think it's going to be Michigan. I think the fact that it's in the big house is huge as well. I think I don't think the Ryan Day coached Ohio State Buckeyes teams have the ferocity that the Urban Meyer teams had that you need to go into the big house and win. Urban Meyer's teams made it really look like a walk in the park going in there and winning, but it's not. And it definitely isn't right now with the momentum that program has, the fight they're playing with, the whole bet thing on Twitter. I mean, they really are just, whether it be for whether you think it's terrible. I know how Paul Feinbaum feels about it. Um, whether their, anger is warranted or not. I think it's going to be Michigan coming out in this one. I think it'll be close for the first half, and I think Michigan's quality and their offensive line and their running backs just find a way to perform in these games lately. And I think they're going to win again. I think that the way, if you can pound the rock, you can win football games like these kind of big games, and I think they're going to do it.
I am going the opposite way. I'm not a believer in them. I'm believing the Michigan running game, and I was hoping to see something from JJ McCarthy. He has done a touchdown in 3 weeks.
Wow.
So
Down to.
it's I mean, they've been winning, so who cares? But can you do that against Ohio State? I don't think so. Kyle McCord, he's been up and down, but the weapons are there. And Travion Henderson looks healthy. He's gonna be ready to rock. I think Ohio State's gonna get him. I'm
Mm.
excited to see Ryan Day's post game press conference too. I think it's gonna be electric as well. But
Screaming at Lou Holtz one more time.
everybody screaming at everybody. Harbaugh, everybody's gonna be great. So even the Buckeyes. I mean, if your quarterback has done a touchdown in 3 weeks, I'm not gonna pick you to win. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I want to see the like second half Fiesta Bowl JJ McCarthy against TCU. I want to see that JJ McCarthy where if they are to fall behind against Ohio State gets off to a really strong start. They get like say a 14-0 lead, 10-0 lead, what have you. On the road, I want to see if JJ McCarthy can lead the team back with the passing attack. We know the rushing game is solid. We know Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards, what they've done the last couple of years against Ohio State, they've taken over the game each of the last 2 years on their own, and even Edwards especially. Once Corum went down last year, we know what they can do. Ohio State damn sure knows what they can do. I want to see if JJ McCarthy, if Ohio State gets off to a strong start, if they have a halftime lead, whatever it might be, I want to see if JJ McCarthy can, like you said, I want to see if he can ignite the passing offense and give that element that we haven't really seen for a lot of the year. And we haven't really had to see it from JJ McCarthy. He hasn't had to throw the ball a ton. He only threw the ball, 8 times against Penn State? Didn't
Yeah.
really need to. I mean, that defense, if that defense gets rolling and they get stops early, I don't think JJ McCarthy needs to be that much of a factor. But I do think Ohio State might, kind of punch him in the mouth early. And I think JJ McCarthy is going to make a statement, and the running game is going to supplement that as it always does. I like Michigan winning in a close one, closer than it has been the last 2 years, but still probably, a 7-point game. I have to include this one because the rivalry is, always one of the most historic ones right now. I don't know why we're doing it, but just that by default because it's the Iron Bowl, Alabama versus Auburn at Jordan-Hare Stadium.
Hey man, I think it could be. No, I'm just kidding. It's Alabama by 3 touchdowns at minimum. That performance against New Mexico State might be the worst. I mean, when you're getting suplexed by the New Mexico State quarterback,
And watch your mouth. That's Diego Pavia we're talking about.
Respect on his name.
Okay, I will say this. That man, I am such a big fan of Diego Pavia. And we're going to talk about him the next pick here. But
yes,
Alabama is going to absolutely, if this game is close, we can move it up ahead of Ole Miss and Mississippi State for being one of the most chaotic rivalries in college football because, I mean, it really, Auburn does bring their A game in this game. If they bring their A game in this one, I'll be shocked because that performance last week was one of the worst. I mean, New Mexico State went into that game 0-26 against the SEC. I mean, it's just really, it's gonna be a blowout. There's not much else to say. If it's not a blowout, then Alabama, I don't even think should be considered, unless they beat Georgia. Which I mean, no way.
You forget what happened when Auburn played Georgia a few weeks ago. It was a close game. It took Brock Bowers going Superman to win the game.
Where are you going with this?
I'm not going anywhere. Alabama's gonna win. Again, I'm still not a believer in their passing offense. I think they can run the ball well, and that's all you have to do to beat Auburn. So it's not even close.
Yeah. I just want to correct you, Adeen, on Diego Pavia. That's high school state champion wrestler Diego Pavia to you. So put some respect on my man Diego.
I'll tell you what, I'm not messing with the guy that would urinate on the logo. I just can't do it.
Yeah. That's one tough son of a gun. I'm taking Alabama in this one. I want it to be competitive just because I enjoy watching the Iron Bowl every year. It's one of my favorites that I watch every single year. This one, I'm not expecting any sort of chaos from Auburn. I think Auburn's kind of just given up at this point. Losing to New Mexico State by 21 at home. I don't feel like the crowd might be as amped going into this one as they normally would going into the Iron Bowl. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, it's still a huge game regardless.
They'll be amped. Do not worry. They will go into that game if they're 2-8, 2-8 going into it. They'll go crazy. 2-9. They'll go crazy.
Yeah, perhaps I'm wrong, but I like Alabama to win, and I think the Auburn fans are probably going to be home by mid-third quarter.
Wow. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, it's going to be a rough one. Speaking of Diego Pavia, we got Jacksonville State versus New Mexico State. New Mexico State's already in the Conference USA Championship game. They'll play Liberty. Jacksonville State, unfortunately, cannot compete in a bowl game because this is their first year in the FBS. But shout out to the Gamecocks. Shout out to Rich Rod, man. I did not think they were going to be this successful this early in the FBS.
Yeah, I mean that Jacksonville State offense is something else to, be reckoned with because I believe they're top three in the country in plays run per game and like the concentration of plays they run per minute or something like that. So that's going to be really tough for New Mexico State to defend. And I think that'll actually play into the Jacksonville State their favor. And I think that with New Mexico State looking forward to their championship game, they could catch them napping. I love Diego Pavia. Please don't hurt me. Um, I'm talking to Diego, by the way. And I think Jacksonville State is gonna win this one. I think that their fast-paced offense is going to take the Aggies by not surprise because they should be expecting it, but anytime you play an offense like that, it's going to be very tough on our defense. And I think Jacksonville State will come out on top and send New Mexico State to that championship game going in at 8-4.
Yeah, I think Jacksonville State are coming with a chip on their shoulder because, like you said, not their motion got denied and stuff. And New Mexico State is kind of hard. That was a big win for them going in to Auburn and winning that game. So it's kind of like you're on an emotional high, and it's hard to carry that over. And then you have Liberty next week. I think it might be a little bit letdown. Jacksonville State, they're gonna be looking to send a message saying that we're the best team and we're gonna show you why. And yeah, I'm going with the Gamecocks.
All right. Yeah, I love this Gamecocks team. They're third in the nation in rushing yards behind Liberty and Air Force.
They had like
Um,
600 last week.
yeah,
That's
500, 600 yards
insane.
last week.
That was insane.
Yeah, it's a really well-rounded group. It's a very well-coached group. I didn't think they had a lot of talent and depth on their roster coming into the year. I thought they might kind of fall into the Sam Houston kind of tier. I thought they might get run over in their first year, and I was way wrong on that. So shout out to Rich Rod and that program for making that jump. However, I think New Mexico State is just a really, really sound football team, extremely well coached. Their offense does not need to be super explosive for them to win games because their defense is really tough. They're just a physical football team in the trenches. They play really sound defense overall. I think New Mexico State wins this one in a very close game. I think it's going to be a high scoring one. I like New Mexico State to win this one and ride in and potentially have a chance to win, 11 or 12 games, which is crazy. New Mexico State, man, shout out to them. We talked about this one a bit earlier when we were talking about Florida State in that section, but Florida State versus Florida, do they win in Gainesville?
We got the backup QB bowl. Let's go. So Graham Mertz obviously got his collarbone kind of messed up in the Mizzou game. It looked like the adrenaline, that was just the epitome of adrenaline pumping. He was celebrating, going crazy after that little scramble he had, broke 2 tackles, injured 2 Mizzou guys, and then the next play he was like, "Oh my God, I can't play anymore." But I'm gonna take Florida State in this one. I think that while, like I said earlier, a 5-6 team is no team to mess with, and Max Brown at quarterback for Florida is actually a pretty good player, a very good player, actually. I love what I saw from him. Almost got Florida that game and pulled off a crazy win down by 9 after the fumble against Mizzou. So I'm not going to say that Florida is going to get blown out here. I actually think that the Florida State's biggest fear is going to happen. I think it's going to be an ugly one. And I think this is going to be like a 17-13 final that Florida
Mm.
State comes out with, but doesn't exactly eliminate any question marks in. And I think that they're going to go into that Louisville game needing a pretty good performance to get in the playoff.
Give me the Gators. I think Florida is going to handle business. It's kind of what you
Oh.
said, a 5-6 team, dangerous in the last week. The first quarter, I think, is going to be really important for both of these quarterbacks because Florida blitzes a lot. When you have a backup quarterback, how is he going to react to that? We'll see. Florida State, we know about their defensive front. They have NFL guys on the other side. Florida has both tackles I think are out for Florida for the season. So it's gonna be tough to see which quarterback can kind of handle that pressure a little bit more. But I think Florida is gonna get it. They're in the swamp. That they play well there. Aside from the Arkansas game, they play well in the swamp. I think this is by far the best offense that Florida State has seen all season, aside from LSU. I mean, Florida's wide receivers are great.
I was going to say.
Pearsall. Oh my God.
Aside from LSU, which was 3 months ago. So it might be Florida State, if they can get out early and then take it's a little shaky, I think they can figure it out. I think it's gonna be ugly. 20-14.
Mm.
Give me the Gators.
For those of you listening on the podcast and aren't watching the video, Adam was chomping. He was doing the Gator chomp. So
he was hitting the Harrison Mevis, one might say.
Oh man, I believe in Tate Rodemaker. Honestly, I think he's a talented quarterback. I think he's been in this system for a little bit. He's observed enough. He's been in the games. When it's gotten out of hand for other teams, he's been able to get in and kind of run the offense a little bit. For me, I think the biggest factor is that I don't know that Florida can handle the size and speed of Florida State's playmakers. I love the size that they have. I mean, Johnny Wilson is kind of any other week. He's dropping passes or he's making crazy catches in traffic. Keon Coleman is a star. Jaheim Bell, I think, has gotten his groove on after not really getting the ball a lot. And then we know what the running backs can do. We talked about that. I do think this is going to be a close one, a sloppy one. I like Florida State to win this one in a close one as well. I don't think it's going to be one where they need to really prove something against Louisville to get in. I think they win just comfortably enough to where people aren't questioning, hey, if is this team even worthy of being in the playoff without Jordan Travis? So I think they win comfortably enough in that situation. And finally, it feels like deja vu that we're in this situation. North Carolina's playing NC State. North Carolina's toppling again, it feels like. And then NC State is on the rise. They're ranked in the college football playoff, which I feel like took some people by surprise.
It didn't take me by surprise. If you look at this team lately, they've really turned it around since the Duke game. Got a good win over Clemson, got a pretty dominant win over Miami. Looked really good against Wake Forest, kind of snuck one out against Virginia Tech, and Brennan Armstrong looked really good in that Virginia Tech game, and I think he looks really good right now as the season's gone on, and he's gotten healthy and whatnot. I think that this is going to be a great game. This is going to be a fantastic game to watch. I don't think you guys should miss this one, even though it's on the ACC network. Obviously, some people might be like, why in the world is a game like this on ACC network? But it'll be a night game at NC State. I think that you might think it'll play in NC State's favor, but Mac Brown, believe me, will know how to get his team ready for a game like this, and I think he will do that. And I think the Tar Heels are going to bounce back from a tough loss against Clemson last week, and Drake May is going to have a good game because he knows how big this game is for his draft prospects. A lot of people are going to be watching this game, a lot of pro scouts, obviously, and I think he'll put out Marion Hampton as well is going to have a great game, I think, and I think North Carolina should win this one in a nail biter in Raleigh.
I'm going to go the opposite. I'm going with NC State. This North Carolina team, it just seems like they just felt that I lost to Virginia and then lose the next week to Georgia Tech. Yeah, it's just they kind of bounce back a little bit, but NC State's rolling right now. I agree that Mac Brown, obviously I love him, but I'm going with NC State.
If it's going to be anything like last year, I mean, North Carolina got off to a really good start. People were talking about them quite a bit and then completely fell off and didn't quite happen to the level that I thought it might this year. Had those 2 games against Virginia and Georgia Tech, which Georgia Tech just snipes ranked teams constantly. That's just what they do. So that one didn't really surprise me. Bounce back against FCS powerhouse Campbell for whatever that's worth, and then they beat Duke in a double overtime game. I thought that was a pretty solid game, but to me, North Carolina's defense, that's kind of the triggering point for me. We know North Carolina's offense is outstanding. Drake May is, obviously going to be one of the first quarterbacks taken. Might honestly be the last time we see him play. Maybe he opts out of the bowl game and goes to the draft. I would probably bet against that, but you never know. It could be. Marion Hampton has, I think, 6 straight games of 100 yards or more. The last couple he's had like 150 plus. So that guy's a star. But I just think NC State, I like their offense a little bit more. I think they've got the momentum. Home at night, I love it in Raleigh. Give me NC State. I think it's going to be a fun one. North Carolina, man, it's just a weird thing that they fall apart after having so much hype. There needs to be some sort of study on this. I don't get it.
It's tough. I feel bad for their fan base. Just kidding.
Just kidding. Wow. Off the top
Jeez.
rope. Kick them while
They got
down,
basketball, man. They got basketball to turn to.
Do
It's
they?
all good. Sometimes not right. I guess not right now, but they've had it.
Yeah.
But it is weird. It is super weird how they always just collapse like that, and you have to wonder what is it, because they have so much talent, and it's just really weird. They've recruited so much talent. Mac Brown's done a great job recruiting, and I just don't know what it is.
Yeah, maybe they get too high and then kind of just stop practicing hard. They're like, hey, we got this. We're a good team. We're high in the rankings. This is total BS. No team actually does this, but like you never know.
It's funny because I don't know if y'all saw the video. Mac Brown had a press conference before the Virginia game, and he was talking about how Bill Parcells told him at Texas, like, your team's you're 10-0. You're getting complacent. Like Bill Parcells told Mac Brown that. Mac Brown gave that speech. It was a great speech. He told the reporters that, and then they go and lose to Virginia right after.
Terrible loss.
and then Georgia Tech after that.
And then Georgia Tech. It's like you did all that talking, and he was right. I guess he sensed that his team was getting a little too complacent. They didn't listen. Lost to Virginia, lost to Georgia Tech. There's your season.
Yeah, I think that should do it for us. Adeen, thank you so much for joining us, man. It was a lot of fun having you on the podcast. Where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Adeen Rao _. That's my name. You can find me at Rock Nation for the Missouri Tigers. If you're big into the Missouri Tigers, I recommend you take a read. And yeah, just if you ever want to debate about college football, hit my DMs. I will not ignore you. Promise.
So, well, thank you for joining us, man. Awesome job. Thank you, Adam, for joining me tonight as well. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Can't wait for all the Week 13 action for Rivalry Weekend. And we'll see you in the next podcast episode.